My name is Daniel, and this is my story. The sky was tinged with red and orange when the armies of Nebuchadnezzar surrounded Jerusalem. The sound of horses' hooves and the clamor of Babylonian warriors filled the air, marking the beginning of an era of captivity for the people of Judah. Among the captives was I, Daniel, hailing from nobility or perhaps even from royal lineage. The uncertainty of the future weighed on my shoulders as heavily as the chains that bound my hands. The journey to Babylon was arduous and filled with reflections. I knew that even in the shadows of exile, my faith in God would be my stronghold. Upon our arrival, we were received not as common prisoners, but as future servants of the king's court. Along with my brothers Ananias, Mishael, and Azariah, I was selected for a 3-year program to learn the language and literature of the Chaldeans. The honor this represented could not overshadow the challenge we would face, remaining faithful to God in a strange and pagan environment. The attempt to assimilate us into Babylonian culture began with the change of our names in an attempt to erase our identity and faith. But within me, I knew that no matter what they called us, our devotion to God would remain unshakable. The challenge came soon in the early days when we were offered the food from the royal table, food that our faith prohibited. Refusing the king's food was unthinkable, an act of defiance that could cost us our lives. Yet my faith compelled me to ask for a chance to feed on only vegetables and water, trusting that God would sustain us. Stepping into the vast and ornate corridors of Nebuchadnezzar's palace, a whirlwind of emotions enveloped me. I, Daniel, along with my 3 friends, stood at a crossroads of faith and conformity. In our hearts, the determination to remain faithful to the God of Israel burned stronger than the flames of Babylonian altars. We were introduced to a new world, a world where the king's table was filled with delicacies that our law forbade us to consume. The decision seemed simple to many, but for us, it was a matter of fidelity to God. In a decision that would challenge the understanding of many, we chose not to defile ourselves with the king's delicacies. We requested a diet exclusively composed of vegetables and water, a choice that, to others, might seem insignificant, but for us, it was an act of unwavering devotion. This choice was not merely about food, but rather a demonstration of our total dependence on and trust in God. The chief of the eunuchs initially expressed concerns, fearing for our health and the impact our appearance could have on his position before the king. However, with a faith that defied human logic, I proposed a 10-day test. If at the end of this period our appearance proved inferior to that of the youths who ate the royal portions, we would submit to the will of the chief of the eunuchs. With some hesitation, he agreed. The 10 days passed, and the result was undeniable. Our appearance was indeed healthier and more vigorous than that of the youths who indulged in the king's delicacies. This miracle, small in the eyes of some but profound to us, was the first of many demonstrations of God's faithfulness to us. He had sustained and blessed us, reaffirming our faith and determination to follow His ways, even in a foreign land. Night had fallen over Babylon, a city of wonders and mysteries, when the commotion began. King Nebuchadnezzar, troubled by dreams that robbed him of sleep, demanded the impossible from his wise men, that they tell him the dream and then interpret it. The tension was palpable, for failure to satisfy the king meant death. It was in this chaotic scene that I received the news that all of us, wise men of the court, were condemned to be executed. Faced with this threat, my faith was tested as never before. It was not only my life at stake, but also that of my dear friends and companions. With the serenity that only deep faith can provide, I asked the chief of the royal guard, Arioch, to give me time to reveal and interpret the king's dream. Surprisingly, my request was granted. I knew that what followed was a decisive moment, not only for me, but for the entire people of God in Babylon. I gathered Ananias, Mishael, and Azariah, and together we turned to God in fervent prayer. Our plea was direct, that the God of heaven would show us mercy by revealing the mystery behind the king's dream. Our unity in prayer was a testimony to our total dependence on God, acknowledging that without His intervention, our wisdom and knowledge were insufficient. God's answer came in the stillness of the night, a divine revelation that not only unveiled Nebuchadnezzar's dream, but also provided its interpretation. In that moment of clarity, I was overcome with overwhelming gratitude and admiration for God's goodness and power. With a heart overflowing with joy, I praised the God of heaven, acknowledging His wisdom and power, His ability to reveal deep and hidden mysteries. With the divine revelation in hand, I approached Nebuchadnezzar's throne, not with arrogance, but with the humility of one chosen by God to be his instrument. By revealing to the king not only the content of his dream, but also its interpretation, I witnessed God's power on a grand stage before the mightiest of men. The dream, a great statue with parts of different metals, symbolized future kingdoms and divine sovereignty over human affairs. The stone that destroyed the statue without human hands proclaimed the coming of an eternal kingdom established by God Himself, which would never be destroyed. The king's reaction surpassed all expectations. From accuser and executor of wise men, Nebuchadnezzar became a man who prostrated himself in recognition of Daniel's God, praising him as the revealer of mysteries. I, an exile in a foreign land, was exalted to a position of great honor, and my friends were also granted prominent positions. King Nebuchadnezzar's decision to erect a colossal statue of gold and demand its worship by all peoples, nations, and tongues of the empire had plunged the Babylonian court into a fervor of loyalty and fear. I, Daniel, witnessed the profound conviction of my three dear friends, Ananias, Mishael, and Azariah, in the face of the royal decree that directly challenged their unwavering faith in the God of Israel. Their refusal to bow down before the king's image was not just an act of civil disobedience, it was a powerful testimony of their faith. The repercussions of their disobedience reached the king's ears, inflaming his wrath to the point of ordering the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual to punish those who defied his command. Watching closely, my heart was heavy, not with doubt but with the weight of the moment unfolding. My friends were bound and cast into the blazing furnace, a fate that seemed to proclaim not only their martyrdom, but also the defeat of our faith before the eyes of the empire. However, what happened next was a testimony not only to those who watched on that day, but to all subsequent generations. Nebuchadnezzar, in his arrogance, witnessed something that shook the foundations of his faith. He saw 4 men walking unbound and unharmed during the fire, and the 4th was like a son of the gods. The furnace, prepared to be the instrument of our defeat, became the stage for a divine manifestation of power and protection. When Nebuchadnezzar approached the furnace's opening and called my friends by name, ordering them to come out, what followed was a scene of divine triumph. Ananias, Mishael, and Azariah emerged without a hair singed, their garments undamaged, and no smell of fire upon them. The impossible had happened. God had delivered His servants from the fiery furnace. Nebuchadnezzar's response was immediate and profound. He praised the God of Israel, acknowledging His sovereignty and proclaiming a decree that any word against the God of Ananias, Mishael, and Azariah would be punished, for no other God could save in this way. My friends were promoted in the province of Babylon, but the true triumph was not in their earthly exaltation, but in the glorification of the God we serve. The story of the fiery furnace is a narrative of faith, courage, and divine sovereignty manifested in flames. My friends were not alone. They were in the company of the divine, a presence that ensured their miraculous salvation. This event not only solidified our faith in God, but also served as an unwavering testimony of His protection and power to all who heard about this miracle. In the heart of the most intense adversity, God revealed His presence and power, ensuring that even in the flames of persecution, He is with us, a faithful and mighty protector. In the calm before the storm, I, Daniel, was once again called into the presence of Nebuchadnezzar, the great king of Babylon, who was disturbed by another dream, a divine glimpse that left him restless on his golden throne. Before me, the mightiest of men on earth confessed his vulnerability, seeking understanding in the images that danced in his mind during the veil of the night. The dream was about a majestic tree that reached the heavens, visible to all the earth, sheltering animals under its shade and providing food for many. However, a celestial voice ordered the tree to be cut down, its leaves and fruit scattered, leaving only the trunk and roots in the earth, surrounded by a band of iron and bronze. The voice proclaimed that this would happen so that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whom He wills. As I listened to the king's account, I felt the weight of the divine message contained in those dream images. After seeking the wisdom that only God can provide, I felt the weight of the divine message contained in those dream images. After seeking the wisdom that only God can provide, I was filled with a sense of sorrow upon understanding the meaning of the dream. It was a direct warning to Nebuchadnezzar, a king who, although blessed with power and glory, had allowed arrogance to obscure his recognition of divine sovereignty. With humility and care, I revealed to the king the meaning of the dream. The tree reaching the heavens represented Nebuchadnezzar, whose kingdom had grown great and strong. However, just as the tree would be cut down, Nebuchadnezzar would be removed from his throne, driven away from men, until he acknowledged that the highest rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whom He wills. It was a revelation that carried both a warning and a divine promise of restoration, provided that the king turned to the true source of his authority and power. Despite the fear that the interpretation might evoke, Nebuchadnezzar listened to me attentively. I counseled him to renounce his sins and injustices, hoping that the fate revealed in the dream could be avoided. However, as prophetic words were fulfilled, Nebuchadnezzar was afflicted with madness that drove him from his throne and human company, wandering the fields like an animal, until he acknowledged the sovereignty of the Most High. Time passed, and as promised by the divine, Nebuchadnezzar was restored to his throne with renewed understanding and a transformed heart. He proclaimed to the peoples of his vast empire the sovereignty and greatness of the Most High God, whose acts are true and whose ways are just, and who can humble those who walk in arrogance. My journey with Nebuchadnezzar, from interpreting his dreams to witnessing his downfall and restoration, was a constant reminder of God's power and mercy. The story of the Babylonian king is not just about the rise and fall of a man, but about the divine sovereignty that reigns over the kingdoms of men. It was a lesson of humility and recognition, engraved not only in the history of the Babylonian Empire, but in the hearts of all who witnessed the mercy and judgment of the God of Israel. Years passed, and the kingdom of Babylon saw the rise and fall of kings. I continued to serve in the palace, even under the reign of Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar's grandson. In the first year of Belshazzar's reign as king of Babylon, a vision came to me, Daniel, as I lay on my bed in the darkness of the night. My spirit was troubled, and the images unfolding before my inner eyes were as vivid as they were disturbing. I saw 4 great beasts emerging from a turbulent sea, each distinct and more terrifying than the previous, representing empires that would rise and fall in the incessant dance of human power under God's sovereign gaze. The first was like a lion, but it had an eagle's wings. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground and stood on 2 feet like a man, and a human heart was given to it. This animal represented the proud and powerful Babylonian Empire, destined to be humbled and transformed. Next, a second beast resembling a bear rose, with 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and it was told, "Arise, devour much flesh." This symbolized the voracious Medo-Persian Empire, driven by its conquests and dominated by a thirst for expansion. The third animal I saw was like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings like those of a bird. This animal also had 4 heads, and it was given dominion. This figure represented the swift Greek Empire, quick in its conquests under the command of Alexander the Great, and its subsequent divisions under his generals. Finally, the 4th beast was terrifying, dreadful and exceedingly strong, with large iron teeth. It devoured and crushed and trampled underfoot what was left. It was different from all the animals that came before it, and it had 10 horns. As I contemplated these horns, another small one came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted to make room for it. This horn had eyes like those of a man and a mouth that spoke with arrogance. This animal represented the Roman Empire, whose power and brutality were unprecedented, and the small horn a future king whose arrogance and blasphemy challenged God himself. As I watched, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was as white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. I then saw the judgment given against the small horn, and the 4th beast was destroyed and thrown into the blazing fire. In these visions, one like a son of man came with the clouds of heaven, and was given authority, glory, and a kingdom, so that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom will never be destroyed. The vision left me stunned, and my face grew pale. I sought understanding, and it was revealed to me that the great animals, which are 4 kings that will rise from the earth. But the saints of the Most High will receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, forever and ever. This profound and mysterious vision revealed not only the ebb and flow of human power, but also the eternal sovereignty of God over all empires and rulers. Here ends the matter concerning me, Daniel. My thoughts greatly troubled me, and my countenance changed, but I kept the matter in my heart. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, another vision came to me while I was in the citadel of Susa in the province of Elam. In that vision, I found myself by the Ulai Canal. As I watched, a ram with 2 long horns appeared before my eyes. One of the horns was longer than the other, but it grew up later. I saw the ram charging to the west, to the north, and the south. No animal could stand against it, and no one could rescue it from its power. It did as it pleased and became great. While still pondering the vision, a goat came from the west, crossing the whole earth without touching the ground. This goat had a notable horn between its eyes. It rushed furiously toward the ram I had seen, and in a powerful confrontation, it attacked the ram and struck it with overwhelming force. Drawing near to the ram and being infuriated against it, the goat broke its 2 horns, and the ram had no strength to stand before it. It was thrown to the ground and trampled, and no one could rescue the ram from the power of the goat. The goat became exceedingly powerful, but at the height of its strength, the large horn was broken, and in its place 4 notable horns came up, pointing toward the 4 winds of heaven. From this vision emerged another small figure that grew in power toward the south, toward the east, and the glorious land. It grew great, even to the prince of the host. However, it was broken, not by human hands. The vision left me exhausted and shaken. For days I was stunned, reflecting on its meaning. Then Gabriel, one of those who stands before God, was sent to help me understand the vision. The ram with the 2 horns that I saw represents the kings of Media and Persia. The shaggy goat is the king of Greece, and the great horn between its eyes is the first king. The breaking of the horn and the emergence of the 4 horns indicate that the kingdom will be divided and will go to the 4 winds of heaven, but not with the same power. The revelation brought a weight upon my heart, for I knew that times of tribulation and challenges were approaching for the people of God. Gabriel assured me that the vision referred to a time yet distant, at the end of days. Despite the fear and exhaustion I felt, this vision reaffirmed in my heart the sovereignty of God over the kingdoms of the earth. He controls the course of history, raising empires and bringing them down according to his will, always with a greater purpose for his people. With this understanding, though still perturbed by the magnitude of the revelations, I found a renewed sense of faith and purpose. I knew that regardless of the vicissitudes of earthly empires, the God of Israel remains unchanged, a safe refuge for his faithful. Amidst the storms of history, one day, the atmosphere in Belshazzar's court on a fateful night was charged with exuberance and contempt. Wine flowed freely, and the sounds of laughter and blasphemy echoed through the golden corridors of the palace. I, Daniel, who had been removed from the affairs of the court since the previous reign, was suddenly brought back to the epicenter of Babylonian power, called to interpret a phenomenon that had paralyzed King Belshazzar's feast. In his arrogance, he had ordered the sacred vessels taken from the Temple of Jerusalem to be used for drinking during his banquet, openly defying the God of Israel. It was in this scene of blasphemy that the hand appeared, writing mysterious words on the palace wall, leaving the king and his guests terrified. The wisdom of the kingdom's magicians and diviners failed to reveal the meaning of those words, and that's when they called for me before the inscription. I felt the weight of responsibility and the serenity of faith. The written words were a direct judgment from God against Belshazzar's reign. Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin. With a calmness that contrasted with the chaos of that night, I explained to the king and all present that those words announced the end of the Babylonian Empire as they knew it. Mene. God had numbered Belshazzar's reign and decided its end. Tekel. The king had been weighed on the scales and found wanting. Upharsin. His kingdom would be divided and given to the Medes and Persians. The revelation caused a chilling and shocking silence to fall over the orgy of blasphemies that had preceded my interpretation. Despite the gravity of the message, Belshazzar fulfilled his promise by dressing me in robes of honor and proclaiming me the third ruler in the kingdom. But these worldly honors were hollow in the face of the imminent divine judgment. That very night, the prophetic words were fulfilled. Belshazzar was slain, and the Babylonian Empire fell before the Medes and Persians, led by Darius. The writing on the wall was not just an announcement of the end of a blasphemous king, but a demonstration of God's sovereignty over the kingdoms of the earth. He raises and brings down kingdoms and rulers according to his will, and no act of arrogance or defiance will go unanswered. The story of the hand that was written on the wall is a testimony to divine power and justice that extends beyond human limits. It was a lesson for both the powerful of the earth and the humble of heart that true greatness lies in reverence and obedience to the God who rules the heavens and the earth. While Babylon fell around us, faith in the God of Israel remained unshaken, a beacon of hope and justice amidst the storms of human history. In the first year of Darius' reign, the son of Ahasuerus, of the lineage of the Medes, who became king over the realm of the Chaldeans, while I, Daniel, meditated on the scriptures, especially the books of the prophet Jeremiah, I understood that the period of Jerusalem's captivity would last 70 years. This revelation led me to turn my face to the Lord God in prayer and supplication, with fasting, sackcloth, and ashes. I confessed the sins of my people and my own, acknowledging our rebellion and the transgressions that led us into captivity. I pleaded for the mercy of the Lord, not for our merits, but for his great compassion. While praying and confessing, Gabriel, the man I'd seen in the previous vision, approached me swiftly at the time of the evening sacrifice. He instructed me and said, "Daniel, I have come now to give you understanding and wisdom. From the beginning of your supplications, a word went out, and I have come to tell it to you, for you are greatly beloved. Consider the word and understand the vision. 70 weeks are decreed upon your people and your holy city to finish the transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal both vision and prophet, and to anoint a most holy place." Gabriel explained that these 70 weeks would be divided into 3 parts, 7 weeks followed by 62 weeks, and finally 1 last week. He revealed to me that after the 70 weeks, the Messiah would be cut off, not for himself, and the people of a prince who is to come would destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end would come like a flood, and until the end there would be war. Desolations are decreed. He also spoke of a last week, in which a covenant would be confirmed with many, but in the middle of the week the sacrifice and offering would be stopped, and on the wing of abominations desolation would come until the decreed end is poured out on the desolator. This revelation left me stunned and meditative. The magnitude of God's plan, extending far beyond the immediate return of our people from exile, revealed a sacred design that embraced the redemption not only of Israel, but of all humanity. The 70 weeks of years spoke of the consummation of human history, the establishment of eternal justice, the final atonement for sins, and the coming of the Anointed One, the Prince of Princes, who would bring definitive salvation. The prayer that began as a plea for the end of captivity turned into a revelation of God's redeeming work through the centuries, culminating in the coming of the Messiah. With a heavy heart but filled with hope, I knew that despite the trials and tribulations that were still to come, God's sovereign purpose would prevail. The prophecy of the 70 weeks became a beacon of hope, promising the final restoration not only of Jerusalem, but of the entire cosmos under the lordship of the Messiah. In those days, under the reign of Darius, the Medo-Persian Empire spread its wings over vast Babylon. I, Daniel, advanced in years, but firm in faith and trust in the God of Israel, found myself in a position of great favor and responsibility. My loyalty and integrity had distinguished me in the eyes of the king, so much so that I was appointed one of the 3 presidents of the kingdom. However, this honor did not come without its price. Envy and resentment bubbled in the hearts of some who sought my ruin. Knowing of my unwavering devotion to God, they plotted a wicked plan, persuading the king to issue a decree prohibiting any petition to God or man other than the king himself, on pain of being cast into the den of lions. Knowing the decree but moved by a faith that transcended human fear, I continued to pray and give thanks to God as I always had. It didn't take long for my accusers to find me praying and to bring me before the king, demanding that the decree be enforced. Darius's face, marked by anguish, revealed his regret at being ensnared by his law. However, the law of the Medes and Persians could not be revoked, and I was cast into the den of lions. In the darkness of the den, surrounded by beasts whose roars reverberated against the stone walls, my soul found peace in the God I had always served. The night advanced, and with it the expectation of a miracle or the embrace of death. Yet the faith in my heart knew no wavering. I was in the hands of the Most High. At the break of day, Darius's anxious voice broke the silence, calling for me in the hope that the God whom I served incessantly had delivered me. I replied, "I am alive by the divine mercy, for God has sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, so that they have not harmed me in any way. For I was found innocent before him." The joy of the king upon finding me unharmed was immense, and his immediate order was for me to be taken out of the den. But divine justice did not delay in falling upon those who plotted against me, as they were thrown into the same den of lions, meeting a fate quite different from mine. Darius then issued a decree to all the peoples and nations of the vast empire, that they should tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God who endures forever, whose kingdom shall not be destroyed, and whose dominion shall endure to the end. He saves and performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on earth. He saved me from the power of the lions. Thus, my story in the den of lions is not just a tale of physical survival, but a manifestation of God's power, a testimony of unshakable faith that resonates through the centuries. Amidst decrees of kings and roars of lions, the presence of God is the true fortress, and his will is the true decree that governs the destiny of men. In the 3rd year of the reign of Cyrus, king of Persia, a message was revealed to me, Daniel, which was called a true word and dealt with a great conflict. I mourned for 3 weeks, abstaining from delicacies, meat and wine, and anointing myself with oils. On the 24th day of the 1st month, while I was by the bank of the great river, the Tigris, I lifted my eyes and saw a man dressed in linen, with a belt of fine gold from Upaz around his waist. His body was like beryl, his face flashed like lightning, his eyes were like flaming torches, his arms and feet were like polished bronze, and the sound of his words was like the roar of a multitude. Alone, I saw this vision, and a great trembling seized me. I fell into a deep trance with my face to the ground. Then a hand touched me and made me tremble on my hands and knees. The being said to me, "Daniel, greatly beloved man, understand the words that I am about to speak to you, and stand upright, for now I have been sent to you." Upon hearing this voice, I stood up, trembling. He explained to me that from the first day that I set my heart to understand and humbled myself before God, my words were heard. However, the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood him for 21 days, until Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help him, for he had been left alone with the kings of Persia. The revelation that followed spoke of great conflicts unfolding on the world stage, involving the kings of the north and the south, in a web of intrigues, wars, and alliances that would extend until the time of the end. It spoke of a king of the north who would do as he pleased, exalting himself and magnifying himself above every god, speaking monstrous things against the God of gods. He would prosper until the indignation was accomplished, for what was determined would be done. It was also revealed to me that at the time of the end, Michael, the great prince who protects your people, would arise. It would be a time of distress, such as never since there was a nation until that time. At that time, your people shall be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. The vision extended to the resurrection of the dead and the final judgment, painting a picture of the end times with vivid and startling details. The message was clear. There would be a time of purification, trial, and refinement for the people of God. At the end of the vision, I was instructed to go my way until the end. You shall rest and arise to your inheritance at the end of days. These words are deeply engraved in my heart, filling me with solemn hope and unwavering determination to remain faithful, no matter what challenges the future might hold. These visions of future conflicts, distress, and the ultimate promise of redemption and resurrection not only deeply marked my soul, but were intended to prepare all who read them for the certainty of the final triumph. Amidst wars and rumors of wars, the immutable truth remains. The Lord of heaven rules over the kingdoms of men and brings to fulfillment his eternal purposes, guiding history to its glorious climax. As the vision faded and the reality of my chamber in Susa became clearer, I found myself in a state of deep contemplation. The final words of the heavenly messenger, promising rest and inheritance at the end of days, echoed in my mind, weaving into the fabric of my soul with a force that transcended time and circumstance. As a man of faith, accustomed to seeking God's face amidst interpretations of dreams and apocalyptic visions, the certainty of a divine purpose greater than suffering, and the hope offered beyond present mortality prompted deep reflection in me. I reflected on the transience of human power and the futility of earthly kingdoms' arrogance before the majesty of the eternal God. The intrigues, battles, and alliances that consume men are nothing more than passing shadows in the light of the promised eternity. The understanding that my journey on earth, marked by moments of closeness to the divine and unimaginable challenges, was not in vain, strengthened my spirit. The invitation to follow my path to the end, despite the uncertainties the future might bring, was also a call to embrace faith with renewed conviction, knowing that the end is not the end, but a passage to a more glorious reality. The promise of rest and resurrection served as a beacon lighting the way through the darkness of this world, reminding me that life is more than its momentary afflictions. Eternity with God awaits those who persevere in faith, love, and hope, regardless of the storms that may arise. These revelations, though laden with images of judgment and destruction, are not merely harbingers of despair, but announcements of divine justice and final restoration. They offer comfort to the afflicted, strength to the weak, and courage to the fearful, ensuring that behind the veil of the temporal lies an eternal purpose orchestrated by the hand of the Creator. Thus, as I reflect on the visions entrusted to me, I renew my commitment to live each day with the awareness of God's constant presence, shaping my existence not only by the concerns of the moment, but by the hope of that which is eternal. May my life be a testimony of God's faithfulness, a reflection of His light amidst the shadows of this world, until the promised day dawns and the shadow of death is banished forever. My name is Daniel, and this is my story. We have reached the end of our video, and I hope you like it. If you're looking for inspiration, knowledge, and spiritual connection, don't let this opportunity pass you by. Subscribe to our channel now, leave your like and comment to strengthen our community. And if you want to help us continue sharing religious stories that touch hearts, become a channel member. Together we can make a difference and strengthen our spiritual journey. We're counting on you. We've left the link in the description of this video so you can become a member today. Continue watching videos about the history of the Bible. I will leave 2 recommendations here on the screen. God bless you. We will get to the next video.